podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network, kingofpodcasts.com.
After AEW Forbidden Door, AEW just needs to go ahead and focus going forward and close the door on those juvenile delusional detractors.
Woo! Hey, this is the Nature Boy Rick Flair, and believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
The worldwide leader of podcasting excellence, the King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents The Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Wrestling is Real podcast on a Sunday night, and this is King of Podcasts here to recap AEW Forbidden Door London here on the program, and we'll take a little mention about NXT Heatwave also going on tonight. Of course, it's besides the point that WWE would also counter program on the same day as Forbidden Door London, but of course, because they were in London and NXT wanted to go and have their show, they decided, let's just go ahead and make sure we have the focus going on to something else besides. So NXT, people are going to hope that they get the headlines from the wrestling world after the fact. But Forbidden Door tonight was a pretty good show. I did catch it throughout the day. I was out working Uber, but I still had it on my phone, or I was catching it all throughout. And there's a couple of takeaways to get from the show itself. First of all, when it comes to the direction of the company and what All Elite Wrestling's doing, just keep going with it. They're going to have to figure somebody out now in terms of who is going to be the best fit to help mainstream the company. Because right now, what they have in place is good for the existing fan base they have. But to find a way to go ahead and extend it further, that's the biggest problem right now. And that's for a lot of wrestling companies as we speak, which is why there are some companies that have decided to go ahead and partner up with somebody else. I mean, for instance, when it comes to AAA or TNA, to see them go ahead and make inroads to connect to WWE because of the ability of what they're able to go and do to get broadcast deals and get exposure from a lot of different outlets. I mean, it's a publicity machine. It's a media machine. There's no doubt about that. And AEW does not have that kind of media machine, not at all. And I'm wondering if there's certain things that could be done to help solidify that. Because for Tony Khan, after the broadcast deal was finalized last year with Warner Brothers Discovery, eventually he'll have HBO Max where his pay-per-views are going to be made available, aside from Amazon Prime and other places. I think it's just for him, it's just trying to find what are the top main draws that can help draw interest to them. And there are some that they have so far that I think is utilized pretty well. Of the mainstream draws, I can say right now that I really look at that can supersede outside of the wrestling bubble are MJF, who we now saw from the bump from Happy Gilmore, and timeless Toni Storm, who's done quite a bit going on the red carpet, going to certain events for movies, and just those two stars are indicative of the AEW brand. AEW, I feel like, actually has an identity, fully fleshed out, and they're not afraid of being campy, being, poking fun, or, I mean, poking fun, but just like poking fun at each other, being humble to each other, and just making good matches based on storylines. They storytell on that brand, and they do quite a bit of that. There's a lot of storytelling within that is created from make-believe. Of course, it's what wrestling has always been. They still tie in and tap into the traditional sense. They also really do stick into the whole extreme bit of things when it comes to their lights out steel cage match. We'll talk about it in a minute. But I mean, it's a big top carnival feel of like everything that's in there. There's something you're going to like out of those matches and what they're doing. And that's good. And it's not so much of a sports-based kind of feel to it. I mean, you have a lot of stars, a lot of talent that is being utilized. Whether you don't like the way they're being utilized or who's being put on top, well, that's on the pencil of Tony Khan and where he decides to go. And for the most part, I don't have much of an issue of who he decides to go and push and who he doesn't. The direction of the show, the way it was booked tonight, this is what's indicative of their pay-per-views. They do a pretty good job. Tonight, I didn't put a whole lot into the fact that I thought it was going to be 3 matches I really cared about at the end of the night, and that's exactly what it was. Because the first several matches in the main card were exhibition. And when I've talked about Forbidden Door in the past and what they've done with these shows, is that it is partly where they are focusing for the most part on showcasing their talent in the sense that they are going up against talent from other brands, whether it's New Japan, Stardom, or CMLL. So these things all make sense in what they're doing with it. And what they decided to go with in all the matches they had tonight, they had a very packed 0 hour. And then you had several callbacks throughout the night. You had a couple of you had a return that was very important. And for the most part, they have a lot of talent they're trying to put in and they're trying to incorporate. And, for some people, they're going to ask themselves, why is it that certain factions and groups are not being focused more on the main card? Because they were so prominently used in WWE in a certain sense. But Tony Khan, in a way, he has his basis for who he decides to book and who he decides to position first. So you put Cope and Christian together and bring that team together, where there's still a whole lot of animosity between both of them. They made that point very clear. And then Killswitch and Kip Sabian in the same way here, also doing little things. And Cope and Christian get the win. People were happy about it. They saw the reunion. They're still not necessarily in favorites with each other, but they're trying to work it out. And we'll let that continue forward because, of course, there's more to come with them taking care of FTR down the line and other things, of course, they're going to try to work on. And then we get to the focus of 4 matches coming, or actually it was 3 matches really that got my attention that were absolutely exhibition matches because no one was going to lose their respective titles, but it was something about the direction of who they're going to bring on. Now, in some cases, it's one or the other. So, first off, Kyle Fletcher, Protostar, and going after Hiromu Takahashi, TNT title, good match. But for Kyle Fletcher, you could just see in this match the way he's positioned, and Don Callis out there, whoever he gets to go into company himself with, you could tell that they're starting to work their way. Kyle Fletcher's getting elevated really quickly. He is at the level where I feel like even outside of the whole association with Will Ospreay, I think even just him being associated in the family, Kyle Fletcher and all the work they've been doing either in the company or New Japan or wherever, he's getting built up to a certain level. He's elevated. He's gotten a great push. His look is great. And in AEW, that's a star that I think has been made. Because I didn't think Kyle Fletcher was going to be that kind of star coming out of a tag team that he had with Aussie Open. But it's there. And I never thought I would see Kyle Fletcher to the level of where I thought Will Ospreay was. It's amazing. But call it like it is, Kyle Fletcher has become a star in this company. Like, I look at him completely different than I did from the beginning. And I don't know what it was, but the big difference. I mean, there was obviously optics, cutting his hair, giving him the gimmick, total ego change. In a transition from tag team to solo star and being a singles competitor and just really looking good with that TNT title. Now, of course, everybody's going to go ahead and get worked up over Mercedes Moné. Now she's got 9 belts she has won at this point. She's taking on partner for Will Ospreay, Alex Windsor, which I just realized that was that today. Then Bozilla, who's like at 21 years old, badass female wrestler here that just really looked menacing and very intimidating out there. And Persephone. And this match had a whole lot going on with it, but Mercedes Moné getting the win. After all, You know she's going to go in and win. I mean, there's nothing where they're going to have her completely going to have a downfall where all those belts start going away. And everybody's going to get caught up with her anyway because of the fact that she's out there with all these belts. And the constant focus on her. Yeah, I know. Everybody's all worked up and upset about her. That's okay. Whatever. I'm not caught up on it. I'm not worried about it. But I think what they've done with her from the beginning, trying to get her worked out and just trying to get her character right. The Mercedes Moné character has worked out really well. I think they found a way to get themselves in the right direction to go ahead and move forward. And, you know, her direction, there's just a lot of animosity because she's not the Sasha Banks character before. The fact that, you know, how dare she find her way when she was let go from WWE, right? Because of the fact that Naomi came back and spent 1 year in Impact Wrestling, standout knockout talent as a Knockouts champion, comes back and then works with the company again, but Sasha didn't make the return back, even after Vince McMahon wasn't there. And that Sasha just had different aspirations for herself. She felt like she wanted to be like an Eddie Guerrero. She wanted to go ahead and explore the world in other organizations of work, and she did. And now she's been out there trailblazing for herself, and she's doing great in her prime. And I'm glad for her, because if you would have ever seen her go back to the Fed, I don't think she would even have the level of where she is right now, because it's obvious that in WWE right now, there are certain talents that are not going to get the main focus. Even Becky Lynch not getting the type of focus she did before. Like if you pass that 30-year-old mark, you're not there. I mean, because they've moved on to other talent they had from NXT that have been brought up and escalated, and that's what they're focusing on. Like there still might be a place for secondary storylines for Bayley or Becky Lynch and others like that to win secondary titles, but that's really what they are. They're not going after the main titles now. That's not what their focus is on. There's been a lot of talk where New Japan Pro Wrestling has had a bit of a stagnation, and also they're at a point where they don't have the talent that they have right now on the roster has not been getting renewed, or a lot of fresh faces in there from what it looks like. Zack Sabre Jr. right now is the current World Heavyweight Champion. Him and Nigel McGuinness was a dream match. I mean, the thing is, for Nigel McGuinness, it's like what Bryan Danielson was, who, by the way, was great on commentary tonight and all the matches he was in. And for him, it's nice to see Nigel McGuinness just get back into the role here and get some of these matches that he probably would have never gotten anywhere else. That's the part that I really enjoy, is that he's back out here wrestling again. Him and Daniel Garcia, obviously there's something there with an attachment that we're going to see more of, but I enjoyed seeing Nigel out there. But Zack Sabre Jr., he's going to win anyway. We kind of figured that too. All exhibition matches. That's fine. BrodiDo. Only title change of the night, where Brody King and Bandito beat Hurt Syndicate and FTR, but FTR took the pin. That's obviously the point. And there was a lot of talk over the week about Hurt Syndicate asserting creative control. We talked about that at the end of the podcast on Wednesday. You kind of figured that would be here, but with FTR, there's a lot of direction for them to go and work on. And now, obviously, we see that the Hurt Syndicate now has to deal with Ricochet and Gates of Agony, and that's going to be a focus on there. So they're going to move off to other feuds for themselves, as opposed to the tag team titles. And talk about quite a team to put together, where Brody King had worked some time over Ring of Honor, and then Bandito being Ring of Honor World Champion, and you put this team together, they mesh really well. I mean, for Brody King, man, what a nice way to go and turn things out, where, I mean, he's gotten a lot of times where he's gotten to be out there for a singles action, but to put him here in this tag team, and for the tag team to go and just mesh so well, great. I've really enjoyed it, but they put some time into it. They put him in the elimination tournament, and it worked out really well. I liked it all. Then we move forward and look into some of the pillars they have right now within the company, because when you look at stars they've had out there that main event level and can always be kind of pushed right now in the right position. For Forbidden Door, Kazuchika Okada, of course, prominently a main event talent, the main event champion in New Japan for all these years. But right now, Unified title has been made important, combining the Continental International titles. And Okada feels very important with this title. And of course, the attachment to Don Callis also helps a lot. But I thought him and Swerve Strickland really worked well together. And Swerve feels like a main event star without the belt. And at this point, because Hangman Adam Page holds the AEW World title, we won't see Swerve Strickland into that mix again, but I think we will again eventually if and when MJF wins that title back. That's a feud we haven't gotten to yet, where Swerve Strickland and MJF face each other off. That is a feud I expect down the line at some point. I know they've had like their odds, but like really, it's the MJF Adam Page storyline that has to continue because we got that going on, and that's going to be the workout for that. But very good match with Okada and Strickland tonight as well. And of course, with Athena, almost 1,000 days as Ring of Honor World Champion, into the role here, cashing a contract against Toni Storm. By the way, Tony Khan making points at the press conference, post-show press conference for Forbidden Door, about plans for what they're going to do with the belts going forward, or the world title matches and the contracts for the Casino Gauntlet matches. He says that he wants to see where the holders of the contracts will be given at least 1 week's notice ahead of time rather than being able to cash in any time that they want. They don't want to do the money to make type of deal. And that he doesn't want to utilize the stipulation that's being used in other places, with a change also being made to allow for proper promotion of the title matches ahead of time and protect the integrity of the championships themselves. Quote, I think that I want AEW to be different, and I've been listening to the feedback and voice of the fans, and I think people want the championships in the sport of pro wrestling to have integrity. We're having the best year in the history of AEW, and I think a lot of it is what we're listening to the fans, that we care about the sport, and we want the fans to be leaving what we're doing. Yeah, he's listening to the fans that are not pushing back and constantly, they're just going where the wind blows. Like, there are fans right there that are very fickle. The juvenile delusional fandom will try to go ahead and persuade AEW to go a way that they want, because they want it booked WWE style with former WWE talent. They want this to be booked like WCW. They want this to be booked like the previous TNA. That's what they want. Is that, maybe these stars could work better somewhere else. Meanwhile, it's like they could care. Sometimes they really don't care too much about some of the talent that AEW brings in that wouldn't have gotten a chance to be at this point anywhere else. Because for the most part, yeah, there are talents they have in the company that came from WWE, right? But there's a change in what they're trying to go and do with them. Because for right now, Brody King Bandito would never been looked at. I don't know if they would have been looked at by WWE, right? Okada, of course, they looked at, but ever since Okada's been here, I've enjoyed what they've done with him. His attachment to the Elite, to his attachment to the Don Callis family, his title run in the Continental Classic, and going here as Unified Champion. I like where he's been right here. When you look at stars they've had, look, Adam Page, I don't think would ever been looked at by WWE whatsoever. And look where he's been. Like I said, he didn't give me that kind of vibe 15 years ago if he would have told me in the Sinclair days at Ring of Honor. But look at him now. Bonafide world champion, and fantastic role, with plenty of talent to go up against him. And he's had a lot of great matches. He's really has made a great name for himself in there. He is a pillar in that company. He has really found himself. It's great stuff. MJF, we'll get to in a minute, but again, where MJF, he's one of a kind, generational talent. You get a diamond in the rough like him, and the way he's come from where he's come from has been amazing. We'll talk about that very shortly. But I feel like when you get a chance to go ahead and reposition a Mercedes Moné or a Swerve Strickland, where, with Mercedes Moné, it's her going a completely different direction because she was in that NXT WWE umbrella for so many years. And for her chance to go ahead and completely just change the game and go in some other direction. It's been a wonderful ride to go and see her go through. And that's the thing where I don't expect, if somebody leaves WWE, that I feel like I need to go and see them go back. No, I never feel like that. And I really don't care for the case of where everybody feels like, well, they'll just do a better job if they were only in WWE, which that used to be like the constant kind of talk. WCW days, TNA days, it doesn't matter. The thing is, AEW does not need to be caught up in any of that noise that goes on here where the fandom that he's listening to are not the ones that say, well, you know, they'll be happy if you have somebody from WWE that you're pushing, but then they'll be unhappy when it's not, and they feel like they're being cast aside. And like, there are certain stars they would love to go and just see. Again, it's just like, they don't care for the success of the company. They would care just to see something that's a better alternative when WWE has been failing in the past, which was at the beginning of their run. And now, you know, this whole facade of thinking, well, WWE is creatively going so well because the social media numbers are showing it. The gates of attendance are showing that. You know, the broadcast deals are showing that. Sure, you can go ahead and play that all you want, but creatively, they are not as rich as you think. Okay. But with all the good that WWE has, they need to be doing something more with it. And this is why with AEW, I feel like they are creatively flourishing right now with what they're doing on their roster, because you got storylines. You have things that are going on where they are moving towards a story and they're just not building on some past relationship, past history. Certain times, of course they do, but it's not just everything. Like, you get to see storylines, you get to see recaps, you get to see emotional invested interest, which I can't say happens in the way that it used to be where WWE was the best at. But they're not into the soap opera storytelling. They're not into the sports entertainment stuff. And that's honestly what we're all built up on. I mean, for other companies to go and do that kind of thing where TNA wants to do it, or MLW wants to do it, or NWA wants to do it, where they just kind of build off of storylines that are just, you know, based on, okay, past history or whatever else, that they don't have to go and build some intricate woven storyline with story arcs and a beginning, a middle, and an end. They don't have to go and do that. With WWE, that's when they are their best, because all these other companies outside of WWE have always been given the track record because their wrestlers get to wrestle and get to wrestle an open style with plenty of different move sets that is completely different and exciting and interesting. But in the years of WWE, when they were kind of limited to the amount of moves they're allowed to do, and even the WWE style now in the main roster is still hindering, hampering, and minimizing the amount of things that creatively anybody can do in a ring. What used to be that would make up for it was the storytelling. But this current regime now, under Triple H, Bruce Pritchard, Paul Heyman, and the others, they've taken that away. And we're going to talk about that on Wednesday, because there's something more to that. The last three matches of the pay-per-view we get into were Thomas Toni Storm. This character, I mean, so well done. And I thought the way Athena positioned herself to kind of play off and make fun of the Thomas Toni Storm character was a great way to go and go. I've enjoyed the last couple of feuds. Listen, I've enjoyed some of the feuds that she's had since Mariah May left and became Blake Monroe. I'm sorry, I just don't feel much when it comes to the Blake Monroe character and what they've done with her over there. But ever since the Hollywood ending, I've enjoyed Toni Storm's run here. I mean, consistently, whether it was Megan Bayne or the Mercedes Moné feud, or now here with Athena, I've liked it. I've liked it. There's no shortage. I am not tired of this Toni Storm character. I thought she had a great match with Athena tonight, and there was some plunder going on throughout the night, but I think they're not going to do anything with Athena in terms of the AEW title until she drops the Ring of Honor title. And that's where they are at the moment, because Athena still is very important, holding on that Ring of Honor title as it is. For Ring of Honor, I just wish they had another place to go. Like, it's not easy to go ahead and, I'm not going to go and go follow Honor Club to go and see what's going on. I'm not going out of my way for that, especially when it's just the kind of programming that there is. When I got to enjoy programming that's new and fresh, and like it is every week, but still, it's like I don't have more room to take another show like that and just kind of continue watching. It's very tough. But she's been great. And Athena, for herself, I love the role she had here. But for what it came to is that there was a lot of things that happened plunder-wise that allowed Toni Storm to win and to continue to be champion here. Like, who does she have next? And does Athena continue her feud with her? I don't know, but they'll figure that out soon enough. And, honestly, you could have finished Forbidden Door tonight with Hangman, Adam Page, and MJF, and I would have been just fine with it. Because I thought the way they set that up was fantastic. MJF, man. I was telling myself, he is a combination of Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, and Larry Zbyszko, to me, all in one. And I love the way that the commentary decides to go and work off of MJF with Bryan Danielson just shitting all over all night. The crowd. By the way, that's the other thing I must say that with MJF, I appreciate a lot. That's why he's my favorite wrestler right now of all the rosters right now. MJF is just a standout to me. For me, no need for appreciation. Okay? The crowd, it doesn't matter who crowd there is. Again, you're going to a London crowd, which could be very much where WWE crowds, right? They were all kind of like singing along and always adding a little more hooliganism to the atmosphere of the event tonight in a sold-out, jam-packed, almost 19,000 seated O2 Arena tonight. But I must say that MJF, consistently the heel, and he goes out there and the crowd shits on him like the heel he is. And that tells me everything that you need to know about MJF sticking to character, sticking to storyline, absolutely knowing positively 100% who his character is. He knows it. He lives it. And that's just how it is. And it's a fantastic character. 31 minutes for this match. I loved it. Because Paige and MJF had great matches before. The whole thing with the Dynamite Ring. The way the stipulations were made important because of what was done to lead up to the story. Because it's always the finagling that MJF does to make sure he gets what he wants before the match comes out. So he can have the best chance in his favor to win. Which was no DQ, no count out. And the fact that regardless of counting out or disqualification, he would lose the title, which is why that Paige was tempted by MJF to take that Dynamite Diamond ring that was given to him just to take a shot at MJF because he wanted to do it. The on-purpose ref rumps to Bryce Remsburg and so much more. And it's just those two in the ring. And it was just awesome. And MJF takes the pin. This story doesn't end. There's going to be more to these two, I'm sure of it, because that contract is still valid for MJF. He's going to cash in again. How's he going to do it? That's the part we don't know yet, but it's great. MJF has been memorable, and he's had his time a little bit as a face, which was a great run, into being the heel once again, and finagling his way, and it just works. It's fantastic. Because his storylines are very intricate. And you know, what kind of bullshit is this guy? He is like a J.R. Ewing of this wrestling promotion. What kind of bullshit is MJF going to do to get himself to what he wants in a match or get out of a match or finagle her way or cheat his way to win? Because that's the part we're getting. That's the essence. That's what we want. That's what we expect from this guy. That's wrestling. Because no matter what, the crowd is responding just right. Hangman Adam Page, to his credit, amazing main event star, babyface, and people are just over the moon with this guy. More than ever. Like this run, again, now as champion, has been great for him. And especially here with this MJF feud that he has right now. It's great stuff. And then we move forward into the fact that when you see the screw ups that MJF is not able to get through at the end of the match, because Hangman Adam Page's character, he's just not your typical babyface, where he's able to go ahead and smash the contract case into MJF's face after Hangman Adam Page got a shot of it himself, where MJF's got a near fall. But Then there was the screw up, the screw job of Paige getting to do the same favor back and using it with the buckshot lariat to go and get the win. It was a great finish. Awesome finish. Great way to finish up that match. And you know that MJF still has his turn. And of course, Excalibur had to go in and say it. Yeah, he still got that contract though. It doesn't matter what. And we'll hear him on Wednesday and he will start riling up once again. And so we get to the next pay-per-view, which will probably be All Out. And awesome. Like this, that's just great storytelling, the great way there is. And there's a lot to be said about the match they had after with the lights out steel cage match. A lot of little things, nuances in that match as well that I liked. And of course, with the kind of plunder-like match here, you know, it's like I could have gone without the match, but it was a pretty good match nevertheless. Now, Omega and Ibushi together, that's a great thing. Tanahashi, the story about him being his last match in London, last match in the UK before he retires. Awesome stuff. Will Ospreay getting out there in front of his home crowd because it's a non-sanctioned match. Of course, he said he was injured. He was going to have to take time out for surgery. And the way they set up right here to go forward, somebody actually put up online and talked about the fact that in this match, it was quite the way that here's what somebody said to, quote, "What a beautiful ending. The Forbidden Door gave Will Ospreay a send-off worthy of him, everything he's given the fans. Immediately turned up the heat on the Death Riders. Perfect storytelling, tying his farewell directly to the ankle. That they're the reason he now needs surgery. Wrestling at its finest." And that was the setup at the end of the match to get the heat back on the Death Riders that they're not done yet. And the stuff with the Young Bucks and getting screwed over with the entrances every week have been hilarious. No thumbtacks or nails or anything like that, except a bag of gummy bears. That's hilarious too. And again, poking fun at each other and just goofing off. The campiness. I love that shit. It's good stuff. And I think there's something to be said about Gabe Kidd being in the role here as well as the mercenary, basically, in the Death Riders, and being a part of these matches where he's not necessarily a main roster member. He's not full-time, but he is used so well in these matches here. And then you get Darby Allin coming back. And ridiculous moves for him going out there with double tables and this and that. Like, just the things that are doing out there, incredible. But I enjoyed it all. Like, it was really well done the whole night. But something to be said about where Toni Storm and MJF really fit the bill here as just two standout stars that I see that just come across. But again, there are other stars within this company that are being built. Partly because of the fact that these stars are able to go and have their own creative leeway to kind of build and have some input into what their character is going to be. And they've been moving forward and been doing a great job with it. And it's been great to go and see that. AEW gives you the kind of wrestling I want. And you don't have to like what Tony Khan books. But I don't need someone to go ahead and book the way I want. Okay, listen. With TNA, Tommy Dreamer books a certain direction. I don't necessarily care for that sometimes either. It's okay to disagree with some booking decisions. That's fine. And then to get caught up and really feel like, oh, well, if they just can't do this, then I don't want to watch. Like, there are just some people that just have a personal animus with this company just because they wanted to be somewhat involved, a little more inside with the company, I guess, and whatever. Like, the bias is so apparent. And in that case, I just can't listen to certain people that just got to go ahead and just rail on Tony Khan or rail on AEW because you don't like him. Okay. But there are some people that have a bias that's like, it's like derangement syndrome. It's just you don't like, and that's a different TDS out there. Let's just call it, it's Tony derangement syndrome. It's fine. If that's how you want to feel, but man, you make it so clear and you make it so obvious that there's no objectivity you could possibly have because you are so apparently stuck with TDS right now. And it's like, there's no way for you to come in here and you're not willing to go ahead and be completely honest about it. It's just what you're going to feel. But for me, I don't need WWE's direction, bullying talent, bullying promotions out here to do with them. Either they're going to work with us or they're going to be against us. these kind of things. I don't think the AEW as an entity is trying to get themselves into some kind of war with any other promotion. I think they've been trying to do their best. I think Tony Khan's really been trying to do his best to avoid conflict, because he doesn't need to get into a war with them, because he's just trying to continue to build his business, what he has, and keep doing that, because there's money to be made as the number 2 promotion in the world, which is what he's trying to do. He's made relationships. It's what he's trying to go and do. But man, some of the direction that's going on out there, you know, it's apparent when you have a pay-per-view like this. In a way, I think it's probably better off that, because of the juvenile delusional fandom and their apparent Tony Khan derangement syndrome, that maybe it's best that for WWE fans, they get something to watch for themselves on the nights that AEW has a pay-per-view. Only for the sole fact that then they can just focus on the stuff they like and they can leave AEW alone. Because I think at the end of the day, whatever WWE decides to do to counter program AEW, first of all, why are you doing that and giving them integrity? You're recognizing them as being competition to you, which I thought they weren't in competition to in the first place, right? That now you have a purpose to try to go and destroy the company at all costs, by all means necessary. For what? For AEW, don't let the noise get to you. Keep doing what you're doing. And just keep trying to find the stars that are going to help you build the company to a mainstream level. Who's your Stone Cold? Who's your Rock? Someday that will come out there and they will circumvent past the wrestling bubble and catch the attention of a young mainstream audience like the Attitude Era did, which is what every other wrestling promotion is trying to do. I did not watch NXT Heatwave, but it was going on tonight, Lowell, Massachusetts, and a venue that AEW's run many times in the past. I think even a pay-per-view as well in the early days. Lola Vice is now the number 1 contender for the NXT Women's title after beating Jada Parker and Kelani Jordan. Dark State over Hank and Tank for the NXT Tag Team titles. I'm not watching that. Interesting point. Knockouts World title. Triple Threat. And Ash by Elegance defeated Masha Slamovich and JC Jane to become the new Knockouts World Champion. Ash by Elegance pinning Masha Slamovich. Did not pin JC Jane. Of course, that's not surprising at all. Ethan Page, Chelsea Green in a mixed tag match over Tavian Heights and Tyra May Steele. You get Blake Jordan over Jordan Grace by pinfall in a grudge match. And Ethan Page, Chelsea Green over beating Tavian Heights and Tyra May Steele. And Obafemi tossing Javon Evans into a table. I think he did it the night before on NXT last week on TV, and then he does it again tonight. And Obafemi retains the NXT Championship, and that's what they had tonight for that. One of the last things is going to be featured over on Peacock. I guess they got NXT pay-per-views going to still be on Peacock for the time being, the PLEs, but we know that Clash in Paris is going to be the last pay-per-view on Peacock, and then they move on to WrestlePalooza in 4 weeks' time. Same time as All Out weekend, and here we go. But I'm telling you, when it comes to WWE, yeah, you want to keep counter programming. I think people are starting to realize, and at least I know on this podcaster's vision, that WWE and AEW and the direction, there might be fans that might look at both brands. And of course, there's always been a loyalty and a bias towards the brand they've been growing up and loving all these years with WWE in the first place. And with AEW, it's fans like me that were WCW fans back in the day or ECW fans. And we like the alternative promotions. We just didn't watch WWE on a regular basis. That wasn't the end all be all. Because you know what it came down to at the end of the day? Is because for me, I would do a thing where when I watched wrestling, I would watch WWE for storylines, and I would watch other wrestling programs for more wrestling. Because when I watched Nitro, I watched a lot of matches. Raw, I could skip through it just to get to the storylines I wanted to get to. That's how I did it. Anyway, that's it. We'll come back this week with another Wrestling Zero podcast because wrestling needs us.